Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. Oh, you know, Ramon is every day passes by. I am just more sure and more sure and more sure about this shift that's happening, this change that's happening that's way above and beyond the norm of anything that I really expected to see. You know, it's probably not manifesting and opening up as much as some people would like to see it, and at a rate that some people would like to see it. But I think it's coming at just the right pace. It's coming easy enough and fast enough for people to be able to absorb it and deal with the implications that it has in their personal lives. I mean, if all this shit got dropped on our doorstep all at once, it would be probably too traumatic for us to be able to deal with. There's I don't know, that drone thing that just happened. Now, I haven't read that story. Ramon, have you read that story?
I started reading a little bit of it, but you know, when things come out in the media, you don't know what to believe. Because even in the alternative media, you know, things get said without being confirmed many times. So
probably more so than the other media, but
yeah, and the other media is just full of.
the discernment is essential. You gotta have that discernment filter and the bullshit filter turned on full blast, guys, especially now, because there's a lot of shadow boxing going on out there. People throwing crap out there to distract you and to, you know, get you upset and get you all worked up and so I just man, take a chill pill, take a look at it, you know, try to verify the stuff that you're looking at, and then still don't believe it. You know? I mean, for me, experience is the only sure thing, Ramon.
Yeah, I mean, the gut feeling is probably the only thing you really can believe, because that won't guide you wrong. So, yeah, kind of just feel it out, see how it feels. But what was the other thing?
The story we actually mentioned it last week, but those giant skeletons that were found in where was it, Wisconsin?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing find. I mean, when was it? Let's see, I'm looking at it. May of 1912.
I'm not sure when it was posted, but there was another news. I didn't put it up there, but
it's found in May of 1912. This story is.
There was another one in the 1950s. They had stumbled across this tribe in South America of these 6-foot indigenous people, which is very strange for South America, because everybody, you know, average height's like, you know, even 5'5" is pretty tall.
Right.
So, and they were all like 6'5", 6'3", everybody in the village.
Yeah, the red hair? Do you say the red hair?
No, they were very South American looking, except they were 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
That was back in the 1950s. the first contact with them. I haven't heard from that culture since then, but
Yeah, the ones that get me is the you know, in the Southeast Asia, they've found all sorts of remains of Caucasian, red-haired Caucasian guys, you know, that were, you know, pushing the 8 foot mark too. So that's
yeah, like the one in the story in Hawaii I heard where when the Hawaiians first got there, they were saying that there were some people there already, and they were like these redhead giants. So northern China as well. They found the bodies like what 10 years ago.
yeah, that's the one I think I'm talking about. The northern China one was the last one I saw from out there, I think.
Yeah, but we'll get in heavy
Oh,
into this
definitely.
where I guess. But just want to mention, you can find us on Facebook. I'm always like posting any videos I find or news articles and things like that. You can find us on Twitter, Tom's YouTube channel. If you scroll down on our main page, you can just click on any of that. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, just go to www.the100thmonkeyradio.com. And coming up on our live show, which we do on Tuesdays at 5 p.m., that is, let me see if I remember off the top of my head, that will be John D. Riley.
Oh, good. That's we haven't talked to him for a while.
Yeah, it's been over a year. So you can listen to his old interviews on, it will be your Sunday, so you guys can
we got John Riley, let's see, Marlise Carlin, let's see who else we got coming up on there. William Brown again, we're going to have him on March 5th. I think that's all we have set up right now for
we'll have
Tuesday show.
Yeah, we'll have Kelly LaShaw and Perry Mills. They were supposed to come up last week, but something happened. They can't. So we'll have them probably after William Brown. Yeah. Sometime around there.
Yeah, we've got some good stuff coming up on this side of the show, too. We've got Rita Louise and Dr. William Tiller.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one, too, yeah. And we've got that Angel Rose O'Grady that was just on Coast to Coast here last week. She will be on the show on the 17th of March. Then we got Bruce Lipton's going to come in. We've only got him for an hour, but I love Bruce. He's done some amazing work. So, anyways, we've got a great lineup coming up, guys, and I would like to request everyone, all our listeners' assistance and support in letting other people know about the show. You know, spread the word. Let people know that we're out there and we're doing this work, and we've got, what, 300 or 400 hours at least. I don't know how many hours. I haven't figured it out, Ramon. We've got more than 300 or 400 hours. We've probably got 500 hours worth of audio on the website. And plus we're doing, 2 shows a week now. So it's a lot of material out there, and just a tremendous amount of information for people if they're starting to look and starting to ask the questions. Send them over to the 100th Monkey Radio and have them check us out, and let your friends know, let your family know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we love the support, and in every way that they support us, all our members who have access to that second hour. We're really cheap to get into that membership section, and it just tremendously helps Ramon and I in doing what we're doing. So
okay. Well, I'll say something really quickly about our guest coming up. When I first heard him on Coast to Coast, he sounds like a really laid back, cool guy who's just lifting up rocks and asking questions and saying, "Hey, what's that? Nothing. Keep moving along." So I'm really excited. So who do we have, Tom?
We have Jim Vieira. He's a stonemason, writer, researcher, and member of the Northeast Antiquities Research Association. He studied the mysteries of ancient America for over 20 years and is a frequent contributor to the Shelburne Falls Independent and Ancient American magazine. Jim Vieira has presented at the prestigious TEDx Conference and was a recent guest on Coast to Coast with George Noory. By trades, he's a stonemason, writer, researcher, and member of the Northeast Antiquities Research Association. He's a frequent contributor to the show. Oh, boy, you doubled this, Ramon. he studied indigenous oral history and historical texts in an attempt to better understand humanity's past, and has concluded that not only has our real history been covered up, but much more strange and amazing than most people can believe. Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio, Jim Vieira. Am I pronouncing that last name right?
Yeah, it's like Meredith Vieira.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes, no relation though. Thanks, Tom, and thanks, Ramon, for having me.
Oh, this is one subject that I'm absolutely fascinated about. My family comes from South Dakota originally, and there is just a very deep and rich historical culture there from the native Indians, and that area there is probably the one spot that actually sparked my interest in history in the first place. So.
You know, Jim, you bring me back to the 6th grade, back in the 1980s. So we were studying American history, but we went into, of course you start where the pilgrims start coming and don't go further back. And I asked my teacher, why is it we never study because there were people living here, why we never study their culture? It's like, oh no, because they were just running around like savages. And it's just like, wow. Even back then I knew that was bullshit.
No, absolutely. The completely racist paradigm, and Native Americans are portrayed as, even still, nomadic, savage, unsophisticated. So any evidence to the contrary was marginalized or buried. But, in fact, when the colonists showed up, there was hundreds of thousands of earthen pyramids, geometric forms, and mounds all around, half of the eastern half of the United States. Places like Cahokia, it still exists right in St. Louis, 100-foot high, 14-acre base, that's 1 acre greater than the Great Pyramid, 22 million cubic feet of soil taken from a mile away to create it, massive geometric forms that could predict eclipses, just amazing and astounding stuff everywhere, and that required large and organized civilizations to build it. And then you have the Hopi and the Anasazi star cities in the southwest, and you have the maritime archaic 9,000-year-old culture from Labrador to Maine and Massachusetts that hunted for swordfish and cod in deep waters, 6, 7, 8,000 years ago that you never freaking hear of. So, what I found is that archaeology has done such a pathetic, incompetent, and misguided job at telling us about the past of the United States, and it's a travesty that this information is not taught in school.
This culture, what was the name of that culture? The 9,000-year-old culture?
The maritime archaic, the red paint people.
Maritime archaic.
Yes, they were. The most northern limit was probably Neliac Cove in Labrador, where they had stone burial mounds and stone foundations. It was iced over 8 months of the year. They found toggling harpoons and other geometric designs on their sophisticated artifacts. And they went all the way down to Jersey. They made it near Lake Champlain, and you never hear about them.
I'd never heard about them. Wow.
Yeah. Fishing for swordfish and cod in the North Atlantic. That's pretty good stuff. It's
you can't do that in a canoe.
A dugout. They didn't have the technology to build a canoe. They just chopped at a log and.
Yeah, I've been deep sea fishing, and I know how those waters can get. But before we go into these cultures, let's go into who Jim Vieira is, and how did you get into something that the average person might consider kind of weird?
Well, about 20 years ago or so, I just started noticing strange stone structures in the woods here in western Massachusetts, serpent walls and stone chambers and stone mounds, and didn't seem to fit the colonial context. And so I ran into a book called Manitou by researchers Maver and Dix. Dix was an optical engineer. Maver created the submersible sub Alvin, if you've ever seen it like on the National Geographic special. He was a brilliant naval architect, and they made a really strong case by years of study that Native Americans had a culture, a stone building culture of ceremonialism in the Northeast, and which only fits, basically every other part of the United States has ceremonial structures of earth, stone, shell, midden that are thousands of years old and acknowledged. But in the Northeast, everything's supposed to be colonial, which is kind of absurd. So I started to find these structures. I joined an organization that studies them. I just started to study the mound builders, frankly, and I'm a voracious reader. I just never heard of them, and I was astounded. Earth and pyramids and everything I talked about all over the country, and you don't know about them. It's just mind-boggling. So I started to get a real sense of the paradigm that exists and the arrogance and the dismissiveness of academics and not really wanting to deal with anomalous findings. So I got a real dose of how academia operates, and it's pretty ugly. And not to cast aspersions on everybody who's an academic, of course. It's just the system is it's like the church, and if you step outside it, you're a heretic, which is disgusting. You're supposed to look at evidence and evaluate it open-mindedly, and then draw a conclusion, not be for slamming square pegs into round holes. So so I've been studying this for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we should start off with the redheads, because these guys, who were these guys, where they're from, and because they just were all over the world. It seems like they had a massive, huge civilization at one time, like a worldwide civilization. What have you found from your studies?
So I was reading through the old town histories of Massachusetts, looking for references to stonework that existed when the colonists showed up, and I ran across accounts of they would be called Indian stone piles, Indian fences, Indian stone huts, and I started to realize that there was these accounts, the colonists saying, we just showed up in 1654 at this place, and we find this strange stone hut. Do you know anything about it? In personal correspondence. But what I found was in the Deerfield Town History, 1895, a reference to an 8-foot skeleton with double rows of teeth being unearthed. And I was like, what the hell is that? 8 foot tall, double rows of teeth? What does that even mean? So I started to read through more town histories, tens of thousands of pages, and I unearthed 7-foot double rows of teeth, Hadley, Mass. 7-foot double rows of teeth, Martha's Vineyard. 7'8" double rows of teeth, Middleborough, Massachusetts. Giant skeleton double rows of teeth, Concord, New Hampshire, Rockingham, Vermont, on. And I was like, it was just whacked out, like with these strange anatomic anomalies, like jawbone so large it could pass over the face of the largest man in the village. All these first-hand accounts of colonials finding these skeletal finds all over New England. And then I went to a conference down in Connecticut about megalithic structures in New England, and I realized there was a number of researchers who've been working on this same thing for 20, 30 years, and they often had chapters called anatomic anomalies where they talked about double rows of teeth. So, it's kind of, I'm working with a couple researchers like Ross Hamilton, who wrote A Tradition of Giants, along with Native American scholar Vine Deloria. And to date, we have thousands of accounts. I have a file of about 700 newspaper accounts from the New York Times, Washington Post, then there's scientific journals, American Antiquarian, the Smithsonian's ethnology reports with giant skeletal finds in them. So it's this massive body of evidence. And yes, it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's not even just in the United States.
Is it on every continent so far?
Yeah,
They've been found
it,
on every continent?
yeah, it's just absolutely wild. Well, I'm a recovering Catholic. I don't have any, you know, religious drive here. I'm just like dishing out the information as I find it, without trying to make it fit a theory. And the things that Bible in the Bible they mention giants. In a lot of Native American oral history, they talk about it. A lot of oral histories around the world in religious texts, it seems to be, a real phenomena. Edgar Casey talked about. I'm kind of a fan of Edgar Casey. I like his stuff, and he has several readings about Atlanteans being 10 to 12 foot tall, and you could say, "Oh, Atlantis, that's ridiculous." But Plato wrote at length about Atlantis and the Timaeus and the Critias, and 3 different times he said his material was true, and he got it from the temple priests of Sais and from Solon, and there were all these records were in the Library of Alexandria that got burned to the ground in 392 A.D. by the invading Christians. All the records of Atlantis, and just like the Spanish burnt the Maya codices, all but 4, the same thing happened. It's like these assholes come in, they destroy all the records, and then they tell you what the history was, and then they outlaw oral history essentially too. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's a worldwide phenomena, and yes.
Yeah.
Is there a has it been found that all the remains with the double rows of teeth also have the 6 fingers, 6 toes?
You read my mind, Tom.
In the U.S., I've it's funny. There's this guy Chris Leslie. He runs the Greater Ancestors website, and he has petroglyph pictures of 6 toes and I believe 6 fingers at Pueblo Bonito, Chaco Canyon, like petroglyphs. That and GreaterAncestors.com is a really cool site. But my experience in the United States is I haven't found a lot of the 6 finger, 6 toe stuff. I know they specifically state in the Bible. I've seen some accounts, but the overwhelming majority doesn't mention that. But in other countries, yes, I've definitely found it. And
well, there's a
yep.
Oh, sorry. There's a story I heard in the I think it's the Northwest, Tom, where they were at war with these double-road 6-finger people that were giants because they were like cannibals.
Yes, that's like the Paiute Indians in
yes, that's it.
Nevada, the Lovelock Giants. The Native Americans have a lot of legends. It seems like, I can't claim to know, I don't have the time machine, but it seems like there was a spiritual and warrior class of giants among the Native Americans, but there also seems like there was some whacked out freaking cannibals with double rows of teeth. I don't know if they had the double rows of teeth, but they had like red hair, and they were giant, and they were cannibalistic, and the Native Americans clearly talk about warring with them. And Sarah Winnemucca in the 1800s, a Paiute Indian, told the story of her people and said that we fought these cannibals and we burned them all in a cave. And it's like, oh yeah, that's legend, that's myth, but no, it's oral history. And what they found in the early 1900s, Bakwano hunters found a shitload of 8 and 9 foot giant skeletons with red hair, like with strands of red hair, in these caves with massive weapons and massive sandals. And many of them were on display, like at the Winnemucca Museum. I have witnesses who said, yes, I saw a 9-foot mummy there, and then it disappeared. I have accounts from newspapers that say the Smithsonian received 9.5-foot tall mummies that they now say that don't exist. So there's no question that this is a reality.
So all this stuff that's gone, all these artifacts that have gone to the Smithsonian, they just give the silent treatment, as in, they don't exist, we don't have them?
Well, they're not required to comply with the Freedom of Information Act, although they get like $800 million a year in taxpayer money. So, the impression of the Smithsonian, with the magazine and the museum itself and the TV show is that it's this open-minded evaluation of all evidence to create these theories that are beyond questioning because, so much open-mindedness has gone into it in evaluation. It's a load of shit. They're just another bloated, corrupt institution working for an arm of an establishment to create a preferred view of reality. The thing is that they are compartmentalized like an intelligence agency. So, of course, I'm not claiming that there are thousands of anthropologists and archaeologists involved in some massive cover-up. They're just out of the loop, and they're beholden to a system where if they start to move beyond the margins that have been set and they start talking about giants, they lose their tenure,
They
they're out
lose
of
their
the job.
funding, yeah.
Yeah, of course. So they can't even bring the shit up at all. And instead, they, it's all this, literally, it's like a religion where there are heretics, and they come and they personally attack you. And I'll quickly say, I did a TEDx talk a couple months ago. I got like 120,000 views. It was the #1 watched TEDx in the world, and then it was removed a couple weeks after it was up by TED.com. And essentially what I did in the talk was just read town history accounts about giant skeletons. I read a bunch of reports that showed that the Smithsonian received the remains. And, I took some cheap shots at the Smithsonian and the Koch brothers for funding a global climate denial exhibit there. But I was just, showing that they were corrupt, essentially. But,
Right.
Removing it and censoring it is a whole nother step. So that tells me I'm onto something here,
Right. You don't happen to have a copy of that you downloaded, do you?
I don't, but I'm sure there's a pirate copy out there. Just Vieira TEDx. Yeah, I'm sure there's one still floating around.
If anybody listening happens to either have downloaded this TEDx talk or knows where I can get a hold of it, I would love to get a copy of it, and I will put it up on our website.
Yeah. With the this intrigues me because I also hear stories, and I've met people, and in my own family, I have people who have the little nub of the six finger, but it's not completed. It seems like something that was. It seems like the modern human race and those giants had mixed in pretty much, because I know there's some people that have the double rows of teeth and have them taken out, or have the little bit of the six finger and have it removed as a child.
Very good point. There's actually, I think Steve Quayle, he has a website. He studies this too. There are people with 6 toes and 6 fingers still. And I had a guy come up to me. I was meeting with a physical anthropologist discussing the Native American Repatriation Act, and I was telling her all about the double rows of teeth. And she had an anthropological guidebook saying, is it supernumerary or extra teeth? And I said, no, double rows in the upper and lower jaws behind the teeth, the one set. And then I was showing her the accounts, and this tall guy comes up to me smiling, and he says, I enjoyed your lecture at the college last week. I especially like the part about giants with double rows of teeth. I was born with double rows of teeth, and I had them all removed. And then the anthropologist is shocked and looking in his mouth, and she said, is there anybody in your family who has the same condition? And he said, yes, my identical twin brother has double rows of teeth, but he hasn't had them removed yet. So they are a part of human genetics right now. This whole thing has to do with, you can get into Bigfoot and things like that. I think this is all tied in with some form of genetic engineering that took place in the distant past of humanity, quite honestly. Just like Edgar Casey says.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Because like I live in Japan, and here in Japan we found like giant swords, and because Japanese people are even now they're not that tall, but they found like giant sandals and giant swords and just giant things that doesn't make any sense. But of course, they always put it as
ceremonial.
Yeah, exactly. So
same thing in the United States. Well, I was just going to say I have giant skeleton accounts from Japan of ancient tribes, 7 foot tall, but the same thing. I have newspaper accounts from the New York Times where they unearth giant skeletons. They have giant tools with them in their hands, giant axes, but they call them ceremonial in the museum.
Right.
Which is, ridiculous, Just another, because you got to make all the shit disappear, right? So what do? You make the tablets disappear, the troublesome artifacts, you send the skeletons to the Smithsonian, but there's a lot of stuff you can't make disappear, so you turn it into something else. like a ceremonial object.
Oh, so you just did this TEDx talk back in November.
Yes.
Wow. And that's pretty amazing that they knocked it out that quick.
Yeah, it was real quick.
I'm kind of searching for to see if I can find a copy of that video somewhere.
I think I'll put the word out, and fuck TEDx, frankly. What a bunch of, I'll tell you quickly. They refused to speak to me. They gave me these 8 pathetic reasons that I eviscerated. I had this response where I just, carpet bombed this shitty argument. And I write back, and they said they didn't allow me to correspond via email. I had to go through the woman who set up the TEDx thing out where I live. They didn't include me in the decision process. They didn't ask for any sources or anything. They were insulting. Fuck them. I'm really what a bunch of sellout sack of shits at the top. Of course, TEDx is a great thing, but when you get something like this where I wasn't advocating some unproven and dangerous health cure, I was just reading freaking town history reports and giving carbon date evidence and stuff like that. It's just unconscionable because, somebody was leaning on them and the Smithsonian was bitching about something. They take it down. So that's my rant.
Yeah, we had another guest that did a TEDx and had similar issues with dealing with them. So
the guy from Valencia?
No, Randy. What's his last name? Ramon.
Randy Powell.
Randy Powell. Yeah, he's a free energy guy.
Yeah. No, that was not. Yeah, I think him and it was unprecedented taking down the talks, and the responses are like personal attacks, and it's not even an evaluation of the evidence. Like, how the hell can you account for thousands, not like 16, but thousands of accounts from scientific journals, newspapers all around the country over 100 years, oftentimes saying these remains are getting shipped off to the Carnegie or the Smithsonian. And from Martha's Vineyard to Catalina Island, California, accounts of double rows of teeth and other anatomic anomalies that nobody could possibly know about. The guy writing the town history in freaking Martha's Vineyard is talking about a giant with double rows of teeth. And this happens all around the country over decades of time in an era where there was no efficient communication. It's absolutely impossible to explain that away. And that is never addressed by skeptics. They always say, oh, we're the skeletons or some shit like that. They never answer that question. How the hell can you do that over 150 years? It's the greatest hoax in human history if it's a hoax.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Which it isn't. It isn't. It's idiotic.
Yeah.
Not to get off the United States, but I just want to compare, in China, you have all these pictures of the pyramids and stuff like that, and the question is, why would the Chinese hide something like that? Because it would be amazing for their country, cultural wise, showing that they have pyramids as well. But then, I don't know how true this is, but they were saying that the reason why the Chinese are hiding these pyramids is because who built them? It wasn't the Chinese, it was the redhead giants.
Very good point. But the Chinese government's fucked up. There's no question about that, just like the U.S. government. And they do all kinds of weird shit. But you're absolutely right. I'll tell you, Edgar Casey talks about, very interestingly enough, he says that when Atlantis sank, people went to the United States. They went to South and Central America and built the pyramids there. The mound builders were the Native American tribes, actually, like the Iroquois, believed to be descended directly from Atlantis. They built Stonehenge. They built the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And they went to the Gobi Desert and created a massive city there and built earthen pyramids just like in the U.S. And those pyramids that you see in Japan are just like the ones in the United States. And I have an account from Manly Palmer Hall. He was a 33-degree Mason, and he has this quote about Stonehenge and the mounds of ancient America, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, the pyramids in South and Central America, all being built by remnants from peoples that were dispersed after the fall of Atlantis like 12,000 years ago. The Rosicrucians and the Freemasons have giant skeleton accounts in their historical records or in their literature, and they tie it to the existence of Atlantis. So I firmly believe that the Chinese pyramids, you get the whacked out giants there also, just like in the United States. There's something, these sites all are tied in by giant skeletons and pyramid-like structures. And I'll quickly say that the Great Pyramid of Giza is built by 4 Pi, and Teotihuacan on the other side of the ocean is built with 2 Pi. The base is almost the same, and the elevation at the 2 highest pyramids on both sides of the Atlantic are exactly the same, and they're both aligned to Orion. So is that all an accident, or did they come from one mother culture that spread the information everywhere?
You mean it wasn't a slave culture that built those things?
And I think that I know you're screwing around, but even in the United States with the mound builder culture, you get the same bullshit. The system doesn't want to highlight societies that work together with in a form of cooperation that we can look back on as an example of how to organize our world. It wants you to believe that it was some whacked-out king in a slave society, which just clearly isn't true. So I think, and even Native American culture just gets marginalized and denigrated because they possess a much higher level of connection and spirituality and stewardship for the land than our shitty culture that paves over the world, builds Walmarts and weapons, and tells everybody in the world how to live, you know?
Yeah. With those giants, I've even heard accounts of these Roman battalions going up against them, and just accounts of them being completely frightened of these giants because the axes were about the same size as they were.
Yeah, there are accounts in historical literature from the beginning of time about this. This isn't like some half-assed legend. This is like legitimate accounts of explorers all around the world encountering giants in Patagonia and everywhere else, in Magellan and Roman legions, and it's a freak show. And it's amazing how such a huge thing could be covered up. It's really kind of disturbing and disconcerting that so much information about it's still, people have it in their memory, right? It's still in the public consciousness because of myth and legend, but it's a reality, and it was a reality in the past.
So, it just makes me wonder what from our time is going to be wiped out of the history books in 100 years,
I think by then that society will turn. One thing is, for information to get DNA test remains, or to hunt down some of these giant remains, which I think people might come forward now that it's becoming much more a popular topic. It'll be a really cool thing to just like the discovery of ancient sites that are 20,000 years old. Göbekli Tepe is like 12,000 years old, and it's getting people really, it's helping them break free of the matrix, essentially, and just saying, you know what, we've been freaking lied to, and I have no faith in religion anymore. I have no faith in the government. I have no faith in academia, and these ancient civilizations are here to teach us something, So that's why I push my work forward, is to give people hope for a better way of life for humanity, instead of being controlled by a bunch of assholes, you know what I mean?
Well, we're the 100th Monkey Radio. Are you familiar with the 100th Monkey?
Yes, I am.
That theory. So I think we've got to be coming close to a point where that proverbial straw is going to be dropped on the camel's back, and it's going to give out, and we're going to, the doors are going to have to be open to these places, to the Vatican Library, to the Smithsonian, to all those hidden things that what governments really know, and corporations probably more so than governments, what they really know about what's really going on here, because we don't even see the whole tip of the iceberg. I mean, it's just there's so much. I mean, I went back in the mid '80s. I went down to a place outside of Fort Lauderdale, and it's probably 50 miles from west of Fort Lauderdale. There's a bunch of little islands right off of the coast in the Gulf there, and I canoed out with my brother-in-law at the time, and we paddled out in a canoe out to this little island, and this whole island was built. The whole island was created by oyster shells. I mean, that's what the whole thing was made of. It was a oyster shell dump from a culture that over the 2,500-year-old culture that just walking around on this island, I picked up pottery shards, just tons and tons of broken pottery on this island, and I picked up pottery that was absolutely amazing. The pieces that I found, cups and the designs that were on them, and it just blew me away that was there in the first place, because I'd never, you don't hear about anything past 500 years here. You just flat out don't hear about it. They don't teach it in school for sure.
No, there was just a discovery off the coast of Georgia, the Sapello Shell Ring, I think it's called. Massive walls complex of like you said, but it was this enormous, I think it was like 2350 BC, this enormous village made of seashells, essentially, like walls of seashells and houses, and 2300 BC. Yeah, that's amazing. That there's probably giant. I have a lot of accounts of giant bones being found under shell mounds, up and down the East Coast and the West Coast. They would bury their dead under massive shell mounds, also.
Well, what amazed me about this, probably the thing that amazed me the most about this little island. I call it a little island. It's about a mile long and maybe a quarter mile wide. But the whole thing was just one big pile of oyster shells from the oysters that people ate. I mean, that's
a lot of oysters.
That's a huge society. That's a lot of people over a lot of time that use that place as a dump. And this was just one of many islands that are out there.
This is off the coast of Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, it's about 50 miles east. I'd have to take a look at the map, and I don't remember the exact town, but yeah, it's off the coast of Fort Lauderdale there.
Interesting, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know in Maine there's the Whale Deck Mound that was once 30 feet high of shells. I think the Great Shell Mound in Florida was 75 feet high. It was like a freaking island at one point. And like you said, these are sophisticated or organized cultures living for thousands of years in creating these monuments of shell, earth, stone, all over the country.
Yeah. Is there any evidence that these people were trading with other cultures across the world?
Well, there's evidence of trade routes all over the United States, and evidence that the mound builder cultures of the United States traded into Canada and in Mexico also. There, you find a lot of tablets in the mounds of ancient America. When they unearthed these burial mounds, they found bizarre tablets, like the Grave Creek tablet, the Bat Creek tablet, the Brush Creek tablet, that had strange writing on them. And I'm not sure, I don't believe Native Americans had a written language. It kind of shows, there is a lot of evidence for transoceanic contact, I will say that. But I don't know exactly the nature of the tablets, but they have writing on, this bizarre writing on them, a lot of them. And I'll say the Maritime Archaic, who's 9,000 years old, their tools and hair combs and geometric designs on their artifacts are virtually identical to ones you find in Norway and Denmark, and back 9,000 years ago. And the thought is that there was a cross-cultural connection, which I certainly believe. The same kinds of megalithic structures you find up there, you find on the east coast of America too, but they're called root cellars and farmers' clearing piles and things like that because they have to be transformed into something else to explain them away, right? So we have dolmens in New England, like they have dolmens out west, out in England, but they call it something else. They call it glacial erratics here, So archaeologists it's a really conservative profession that a lot of people go, I don't know, they're like lizard brain skeptics that are, will piss their pants if they're told anything different about reality. So I think it's a real kind of a place that academics go to hide is archaeology, because there's no desire to study anomalies. It's just to inspire people. It's like, not all, but the profession itself, like the written doctrine of it is just kind of support the status quo, not, let's really inspire people with information.
There's tons and tons of accounts of archaeologists who happen to be unlucky enough to find something that was truly phenomenal that destroyed their career.
Yeah.
I have a woman who just contacted me who she showed me all the dig sites she worked on in Kazakhstan, England, all around the planet. She said she had to quit after 10 years. She was so disgusted. There was data alteration at every single site she worked at, and she found anomalous artifacts. So you think you'd be this big hero, I'm going to find something. If you're involved in academia, she said she had no recourse, nobody to complain to, just essentially just driven out of the profession because she happened to, be unlucky enough to find unpopular evidence. Yes, absolutely.
What a shame. What a shame.
Yes.
And here we go back to the tip of the iceberg, that what has gotten out even to the alternative media is just the tip of the iceberg of what's been uncovered, I'm sure.
Oh, no question about it. I have accounts all around the United States. It's not just giant skeletons. It's strange hieroglyphs, stone tombs, giants in copper crowns, copper armor, not like armor in Europe, but like these, plates of copper all over the body. Ancient America, pearls, thousands of pearls in buckets in burial tombs. And, ancient America was like Greek mythology, frankly. It's just an absolutely wild, wild place. And, yeah, there's a lot of documentation of bizarre things that happened in ancient America.
What about that whole thing with the, like Roman coins being found and other cultures like Egyptian? There's that one I think it's in the Grand Canyon, somewhere in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, those caves down there that had the Egyptian hieroglyphs.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't believe that's Egyptian. I believe the story's true. What it is, it's the Phoenix Gazette, I believe in 1909, ran a story, this long and detailed story about an explorer called, who's the professor? He lives in Ohio. Anyways, I'll remember his name. But there was this explorer who came down working for the Smithsonian, Kincaid, G.E. Kincaid was his name, from Lewiston, Idaho. So they ran the story about it. He came down the Grand Canyon, and he saw the staircase he came down the Colorado River, and he saw this, like, stone staircase, like 1,500 feet up. And he climbed it, and he found this massive hall of mummified giant beings and weapons and hieroglyphs and just, like, carved into stone. It was this amazing, like, stone city almost. He gets back to, I think it went to Flagstaff. He reported it. The Smithsonian showed up with Professor S.A. Jordan, and the description was, it was really funny because the Smithsonian later denied the entire report, but it says Buddha-like, Egyptian-like. The descriptions were of something similar to Egyptian. It wasn't necessarily Egyptian. And if you're coming up with some shitty hoax, you're going to say, oh, Egyptian hieroglyphs. You're not going to say Egyptian-like. And there's all these strange details in this long article. And then the Smithsonian denied it. Then a researcher found a story 3 months earlier that was written about the expedition and about E.A. Kincaid. And then S.A. Jordan, who they said didn't exist, he shows up as a field archaeologist 2 years later, but the spelling is Jordon, not Dan. And I have so many accounts of the Smithsonian receiving wild stuff, skeletal remains, anomalous artifacts, that it fits into the context perfectly. I think the lost city of the Grand Canyon is like a Atlantean-like civilization, and it sounds crazy, but I feel that it is a lost civilization that goes back maybe 30 or 40,000 years.
Hmm.
And when you mention coins, that's another anomalous artifact that's been found all over the place. It's just people digging up or finding on a beach Roman coins that that doesn't make any sense, or from other countries too, not just Rome, not just Rome.
Yeah. Yeah, like the whole thing with the one that really gets me. I can always forget these people's names, and they're a tribe that still exists from California, and their language sounds like pre-Portuguese Japanese, which is very different from the Japanese that's spoken now because it's very influenced by Portuguese. But do you know how I'm talking about?
I don't actually.
It's this tribe. I always forget their name, but it's a tribe that they speak Japanese, but they speak a very ancient dialect of Japanese.
The Ainu, A-I-N-U?
No, because their language, the Ainu's language is completely different from Japanese.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar. I just know that there's evidence of transoceanic contact all over the world, and the cocaine mummies. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Yeah. It's just like undeniable. And the woman I'm reading about it, how it gets into the cells of the body and the hair, and it's like you can't fake this shit. And it's the evidence is so overwhelming, and that isn't like front page news. Like, hey, you know what? There was contact between, Egypt and South America thousands of years ago. Yeah, so that's where we're at. We think we're somewhere. We're in the dark ages of science right now.
Yeah, just like Göbekli Tepe. I mean, it's indisputably 12,000 years old at least, right? There's nobody that disputes that fact. And does it make it mainstream?
No one's talking about
it. Doesn't.
That should be making all the printing presses run for all our history books and going into the schools.
Every presentation I do a 5-minute video clip of Göbekli Tepe, just as to show people like what's really going on. National Geographic did a special, they finally covered it after, since 1994 it was known about. I think it was 2011, and it's the same weak-ass shit where, like, you look at Easter Island, they show a bunch of guys like in loincloths and ropes pulling the statues up. They show, I know, it's pathetic. They show Neolithic tribes building Göbekli Tepe in some pathetic recreation of it. See, they don't say this might be a lost civilization. They have to fit it into the paradigm. So what they say is, like, we don't know how Neolithic tribes that were hunters and gatherers could have pulled this off, or their level of sophistication is much more than we thought. It's not, this is another civilization. They go back and they say, oh, this is what was existing, like semi-cavemen, so they had to have built it, and so that's what happens with this information.
Yeah, the amazing thing about that is that it, from what I heard, is that it's like it's almost like it resonates, those columns, like they resonate, almost like a tuning fork kind of thing.
The whole the geometry and the mathematics and just the mathematics and geometry that's involved in majority of these structures is we'd have problems recreating them ourselves here. You're not going to do this stuff by accident.
No, that's the thing. Archaeologists, for some reason, are compelled to answer these questions. Like Baalbek, Lebanon, there's 3 stones, 2 million pounds apiece, on a 40-foot retaining wall, the Temple of Baalbek, Temple of Jupiter, can't get a razor blade between them. You know, how the hell do you do that? Then you get in Pumapunku and you have granite and diorite with interior crosscuts. You can't do that with copper tools, and you need advanced mathematics. That's what's, you know,
interior right angle corners.
Yeah, you can sit there with a copper chisel for 3,000 years, and you're not going to get anywhere, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and metal braces in between them.
Yes, exactly. And those same metal braces you find I think at Angkor Wat, you find in Egypt also, and at Tiwanaku. So you find them in different places.
Yeah, we'll in the second hour we'll get into more using your experience as a mason. You know, what it would take to do these things, because that's the difference, I guess. You know, an archaeologist learned a lot of things at school, but you actually built stuff before, so that's a whole different story.
Gives you a completely different perspective than the guys that are just digging it up, I think. So, yeah. So we are at the top of the hour, and man, have you got a website out there, Jim?
It's funny. I shut down my blog just because the best way to communicate is, I feel, is via Facebook now, because, like it or not, everybody goes there. And I have a page called Stone Builders, Mound Builders, and the Giants of Ancient America. And that's, I post daily there about all these subjects. And there's a lot of content there. Yeah.
Actually, you do an amazing job with it, because it's, I mean, for those of us who, you know, born and raised in America, it's, you know, he's giving you a history lesson every day, because you're always posting something, and I'm just always amazed, like, wow. You know, like, especially, you know, I grew up in New York. There's so many things in New York that you never heard about.
Yeah, I try to produce a lot of content and not to theorize too much, and, you know, just to give people a lot of information that they never heard of, and not, like I said, you know, just go off the deep end with theories. Just like, here you go, you know, you make of it what you will, but why haven't you heard of this? That's kind of the gist of what I do.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, we're going to continue this conversation in the second hour, and I would urge anybody who is interested in hearing more, if you're not a member already, go to www.the100thmonkeyradio.com and join as a member and have access to those hundreds of hours of second hour content that we have on there. Let's see, we will see you guys on the flip side. What music were we using, Ramon?
I don't know. We have anything for stone builders?
Oh boy, let's see. How about we have? Let's go back to Perry Mills. How about?
Tell me the truth.
Now, how about we have Man on a Mission? This is Man on a Mission by Perry Mills Project, taking us out. Now, we'll see you guys in the second hour. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
Namaste.
Loving you. Given my condition, what can I do? just a man.